Alrighty, and we are live. So, folks, for those of you who've just tuned into this, let me tell you, I think you're in for a bit of a ride this afternoon. I'm very much looking forward to this conversation because joining me this afternoon is the one, the only, the renowned Phil Lee. And for those of you who haven't met Phil, he's going to do a bit of an intro to his background in a moment. But you know, if you wanted to try and list any of the top 10 sales masterminds in this country today, particularly in the sales of IT in the enterprise space, Phil would most definitely be on that list. I have no doubt about it, and that's no exaggeration. I'm not blowing smoke up your ass, mate.
James.
Phil Lee is absolutely one of those guys that would be in that list. We're going to just shoot the breeze today. This is going to go wherever it goes. I probably should give you a warning that the following content is recommended for adult viewers only. It may include the occasional colourful word. So if any of you are deeply offended by the use of colourful words, I suggest you just tune out now because it's going to go up shit creek really quickly. Phil.
James.
How you going?
Mate, I'm going well, buddy. Thank you very much. What an introduction. I hope I live up to half of that introduction and for your confidence in me. You said earlier that, you think, I can't remember exactly how you opened, but you said, I can't remember the word, but you said, I was thinking we might shock them. So you've got a lot of stuff to share. I'm an old bloke. You're an old bloke. We've spoken a few times about how we could be brothers because we look quite similar, but the aim of this thing is to share
separated at birth.
Share some information that could be useful to people. Yep. As I said, my expertise, business to business sales for many, many years. I was just telling you how I got started in the industry over 40 years ago. And, would love to make a difference to some people listening, have some fun along the way. Yeah, look, we might drop some F-bombs. I have been known to in the past, and I know you have. So really looking forward to try to make a difference, mate, and have some fun.
Cool. So I'm going to make reference to the book in a little moment, all right? But before we go there, let's get the elephant in the room addressed. Yes. Has sales as we know it changed as a result of this damn #COVID-19 thing?
Okay, so look, short answer, in my view, no. Yes, right. So it is a challenge, no doubt about that. Come out of left field. A lot of people sort of under the age of 30. By the way, I've got two daughters. One's 30, one's 27, both professional in business. Thankfully, they haven't lived through much stuff like this. I just wrote an article, a newsletter to my subscriber list, basically saying, look, I've lived through a number of things like this, personal issues, economic issues, business issues. And this is just another one, albeit it's a very significant one. It's come out of left field. But the bottom line is, particularly, business to business sales, the fundamentals have not and will not change.
Right.
Particularly the more complex, the problems are and the decision process is and the more expensive the solution is, etc. It's still about people buying from people, that old cliche, and being able to position yourself as a potentially trusted and valuable resource, which unfortunately many salespeople are not able to do.
Yeah, absolutely right. That kind of whole know, like, trust, respect, that positioning as the trusted advisor or, the individual who can bring genuine insights, far and few between, right?
Exactly. Well, the only way you can bring genuine insights is if you know what you're about, you know what problems you solve, you know what your solution, what your particular solution helps, how it helps, and that you're not for everybody. And you're really good at asking questions so that, you and your prospective buyer can sort of figure out, whether there are problems there that you can help with, whether or not they want help, what their whole process looks like, whether you want to participate in it, et cetera, et cetera.
Yeah, 100%. So, that change to what we might describe as, solution selling, consultative selling, that kind of thing, versus the old rep who was what I used to describe as a professional tea taker, the product flogger.
Yes.
When did that evolve, and what do you reckon? Why did it evolve?
Okay, well, James, here's an ideal chance to mention my book, The Game Changer. Thanks for that. Which I actually write a bit about that because changing the game is about changing the way that you do things.
Yeah.
Simply, and if you don't do things differently, you're going to play the same old game. And unfortunately, so what happened, to answer your question? I think it was back in about the 1930s. NCR. Now, a lot of people listening, to some of the older people like you and I, and Bill Beattie, if he's listening, will know of NCR because they were around when I started in professional selling in about 1980, 1981 with Honeywell. There was a thing called the Bunch. Do you remember that? Were you in IT?
Yeah.
The Bunch. Burroughs, Univac, NCR, C was Control Data, H was Honeywell. And of course, there was IBM, the leader of the pack, and then the Bunch, right? So NCR, National Cash Register Organization, they made cash registers. I think they were the first ones to do it, or the first ones to do really well at it. And they had a sales manager, I can't remember his name, but he came out with this, like he taught his guys how to sell. And it was fundamentally, show up, throw up, follow up. Get in front of people, demonstrate your product, right? And then just keep on hounding them to see if they wanted to buy it, of course, which some did. They were pretty successful. Then later on, it sort of developed to become a little bit more consultative, around it sort of, I think IBM introduced the concept of asking some questions, at the beginning to try and get a bit of understanding. But fundamentally, then it became sort of like bonding and rapport. I get the person to like you, ask some questions, throw up, in other words, show them what you got. Talk about your company, why you're better than everybody else, show them the features and the benefits and all that sort of thing. A little bit later, handle stalls and objections. So have some smart answers when they come and say, oh, we're not sure, or we'd like to think about it. What is it you'd like to think about? Blah, blah, blah. And then just keep following up. And, it worked in the sort of 30s, 40s, 50s, 60s, maybe 70s. It worked pretty well. I think going into the 80s, but definitely the 90s and 2000s. I mean, the bottom problem is everybody's onto it.
Yeah.
So, unfortunately, when you sell like everybody else and you sound like everybody else, even if you may have a great product or service, it's very difficult to differentiate yourself if all you're doing is doing the same thing as everybody else.
Yep. Yeah, 100%. So let's now add into that mix this relatively new phenomenon called social selling. Yeah.
Yep.
And you and I talking about this before we went live. I've had the good fortune in that at the beginning of 2018, I kind of got what the whole social selling thing could be. I came to the conclusion that my LinkedIn profile was kind of like the Coca-Cola sign at the top of William Street, right?
Yeah, hey, that's a great analogy.
Right, there's all those eyeballs going past it day after day after day after day, and Coca-Cola keep refreshing that thing. It's been there since the 1950s. It started off as a clapperboard, then it went to neon lights, then it went to LCD, and now I think it's LED. And they pay the city of Sydney a six-figure sum to have the thing there. Why? Well, because eyeballs are going past it all the time, right? And it's designed to be top of mind.
I love your analogy. It's a great analogy.
Cheers. I kind of see my stuff, not just my page with my mug on it, but all the stuff that I'm putting up as kind of like my Coca-Cola sign. And when people come past it, what are they seeing? Are they seeing the tired, dusty clapperboard version from 1957? Or are they seeing, the contemporary LED thing? And in particular, are they getting any kind of insights and value out of it? What's your take on social?
Look, I mean, as you've shared with me that, when you start, basically most of, if not all of your clients have come from LinkedIn over the last few years.
Yep.
You haven't had one in-person, face-to-face meeting. It's all been done online.
All online, yeah.
So, it's hard to argue with that. I would say, look, definitely LinkedIn, it's a great place. People, it's like having the Coca-Cola sign at the top of William Street. A lot of your potential consumers are going past there all the time. So they're there, okay? Yeah. And if they can see you and you are seen to be knowledgeable and know what you're talking about, yeah, like they're going to reach out. Some of them are going to reach out to you.
Yep.
I'm still of the belief though, and of course, as I said, it depends on what you're selling. It's the complexity, the dollar value. Like I had a client call me it was this week actually, that I coached last year. He won't mind me saying he was not the easiest client I've ever coached. He actually said to me, Phil, like when you make an omelet, to get a really good product, you have to break some eggs.
Uh-huh.
That's how I would describe our relationship.
Okay.
It was like, because I'm trying to help him and he's resisting anyway.
Yeah.
He called me this week to let me know and thank me. He's just closed a $5 million deal in this current climate.
Wow.
Right?
Yeah.
Because he just changed the way that he was, his offline conversation. So in other words, whether you're doing it online or face-to-face, it's still an offline conversation, if you know what I mean. Yeah. Nobody's going to spend $5 million because they love your LinkedIn profile.
Correct.
They're not going to spend $5 million because they love your content. 100%. They have to talk to you. And he basically said what I said initially. He's an engineer by background. So his thing was getting in front of people. As soon as they said they had a problem, he got all excited. He wanted to tell him what he knew and then go and fix the problem. Well, that wasn't working terribly well. So he now asks a lot of very intelligent and insightful questions. Mm-hmm. He doesn't have happy ears. In other words, he's not married to the outcome of potentially doing a deal or making a sale, right, as much as he was. And he calls it forensic selling. That's his term. Okay. Forensic selling means it's like, yeah, let's sort of investigate this to see if there's something there. So my sense is with you, you're a very credible guy, you're experienced, that sort of oozes in person. They might get an inkling of it from your LinkedIn profile and then from the stuff you're putting out and then seeing you on video. And then when they talk to you, they get a sense of, shit, I think this guy can help.
Yeah. And look, to one of your earlier points, what we sell is not a complex sale. It's not a multiple decision maker sale. It's not multiple points of contact. In essence, we have a hole. We need it to be filled. As a recruiter of salespeople for small businesses, they have a need. What they're really looking for is whether or not they trust the value that I might provide.
And that's the thing as well. And this is not to toot your horn. You tooted my horn a bit. But we all look. Let's face it. Without being disparaging to any particular recruiters, recruiting doesn't have a great name, right? Sales recruiting doesn't have a great name, meaning that, there's been a lot of cowboys in the industry.
Yep.
And people know they've been burnt. I have a client I'm working with at the moment that's sort of, spent good money for some on recruitment and hasn't really got the value for it. And so you talk about that and you talk about that very openly.
Yes.
And like when you and I were talking recently about, recruiting, you were saying the things that I say to people, and I'm not a recruiter. I say, be careful of recruitment organizations. Make sure they profile. Well, you do profile, you do that sort of stuff. Most of them don't because it'll do them out of a deal before they even start.
Yeah.
So you do have a lot of credibility. And as I say, I'm just not pulling your chain there.
Thanks, man.
Yeah. So good. I've started over the last, I've been on LinkedIn for a long time as well, but haven't really been that consistent. Mm-hmm. So starting to be a lot more consistent and putting stuff out there. And I've no one's rung me up and said, "Oh, Phil, we necessarily we'd like to have a chat with you." Although I am starting to get some traction and people commenting that are the right sort of target market for me, which allows me then to go back and say, "Hey, listen, James, thanks for commenting. And does it make sense to have a brief chat? No sales pitch, I promise." And some of them say, "Yeah, it does." So then we have a chance to have an offline conversation.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. I mean, eventually you do have to move it offline. There's no doubt about that. I mean, as much as I haven't had a face-to-face sales call because I use this platform, so I have this conversation. Yeah. I kind of consider this offline because it's not about them being on a website, we're still having a conversation. It just means that I can have a conversation with anybody anywhere in the world.
Which is fair enough, because it's, we're having a conversation now, offline, online,
Yeah, 100%.
or online, offline.
So what do you think about this? This whole thing of gaining insights, right, requires a lot of research. It requires a lot of upfront time spent and invested by a professional salesperson to get an understanding of the organization that they go and approach.
Yeah.
Right now, we're probably in a time, and I am guessing here, so I'm really open to your perspective, but right now I would imagine there's a whole bunch of sales managers and sales directors who've gone, you need to bring more deals through the door. Yeah. Can you push that further through the pipeline? What's your pipeline looking like?
Yeah.
There's that incredible sense of urgency right now. So there's that tension between investing time to get it right versus we haven't got time for you to get it right. What do you reckon?
Yeah, look, it's a really good question. I was watching another sort of an interview with another sales trainer in the US, was a sales trainer from the US.
Mm-hmm.
Steve Clark, I think his name is. And towards the end of the interview, he was trying to be helpful, and he said, even in these trying circumstances, I've just bought 2 deals. I just onboarded 2 new clients. That's him as a sales trainer and coach. He said, but I don't want you to think I've done it in the last week. This was the result. This was started 6 months ago.
Yeah.
So, the results we get are the results of the effort that we've put in previously. So unfortunately, I'm a foundational guy. Like, I'm pretty simplistic, pretty basic. I don't like to overly complicate things, but fundamentally, very simply, sales is all about prospecting and qualification. And so if you've left it till now to be consistent, with prospecting, and you've got a very thin pipeline, well, good luck. You're going to have to get out, and you're going to have to work twice as hard. And not only are you going to have to work twice as hard. And from a sales coach trainer's perspective, see, I know there are a lot better ways of doing it than a lot of people are doing it, because they don't know what they don't know. They just know what they've always done, and they know it doesn't get great results, so they don't like doing it, so they don't do it.
Yeah.
It's fair. Right. I mean, I can put up, really, we're all, but there are better ways of doing stuff that get better results. It usually means you have to learn stuff and get out of your comfort zone. It means you've got to take lessons. It's just been playing chopsticks on the piano and playing a bit like Elton John. Yeah. You don't even have to be as good as Elton John, but you can impress people at parties if you take a few lessons and you apply yourself and do some practice.
Mm-hmm.
So, it's either get out and do a lot of activity, which is the most important thing always.
Yeah.
And this is going to sound a bit biased, but I would strongly recommend that, you look at looking at the way that you're doing it. Is it that effective? And my observation over the last however many years has been that a lot of people in sales, business to business sales, are actually costing themselves money by the way that they're doing what they're doing, by the way they're prospecting, which is like everybody else. It's pretty average. It's like holding up a sign to somebody saying, I'm a salesman here, I'm going to sell you something. And their qualification is pretty poor.
Mm-hmm. You were going to say piss poor, but you held yourself back.
I was going to say piss poor. I was actually going to use a stronger word, but I held back. So that's what I would say. And we all know that people are loath to invest when there's a lot of fear out there.
Yep.
So, someone like me sort of sprouting off about that, people going, oh yeah, but, and I get it. I bought Qantas shares when they went tanked under $3. I mean, who knows what's going to happen? But they're now, like last time I looked, $3.22. They did go down to $2.22. I don't buy Qantas shares just because I say so. But you know what I mean? Like,
Phil is not a professional advisor.
Yeah, don't see a professional advisor before you take Phil's advice about shares. But it's the old straw hats in winter thing. like, really, now is the time to say, okay, how can we do more and how can we do it better?
Yeah, I mean, I was having a chat with somebody else just the other day, um, and as a very, very kind of generalized thought, it occurred to me that today, particularly, and for the next few weeks, probably, um, what you're selling probably needs to do one of two things. It either needs to help us as a business make more revenue and reasonably quickly, or it needs to help us save costs and reasonably quickly. If it doesn't do those two things, then it's probably going to go on the would be nice to have list, right?
Yes, yes. You know, I 100% agree with you. Businesses have priorities, and they would be the two main. The other one maybe they might be, like I was speaking to someone today who's got two actually very large businesses, and one of his managing director of chairman of one, managing director of the other one of his priorities is keeping their people. So
Right.
that would have to do with revenue.
Yeah.
And that would have to do with revenue and sort of streamlining.
Yeah.
But it's, I think he said they'd let go of a few people, but they want to keep it to a minimum.
Yeah.
To not impact lives for one. And the other one is so they can gear up quickly when things change,
Yep.
which they
will. Most definitely.
Most definitely, which they will most definitely. So I encourage people to stay positive because this thing ain't going to last forever.
No, it's not.
Governments, want to see the economy back on track. They want to see people back in jobs. They want to see people traveling, et cetera, et cetera.
Yeah. I have been talking with a number of people over the last couple of years whose opinions I absolutely respect. That they are professionals in the field of macroeconomics. And in fact, I sat in on a webinar earlier this morning where one of the guys, Tim, was speaking to the current events, which he had been forecasting as much as early as 2013.
Is his last name Nostradamus?
It is not. It is not. But macroeconomically speaking,
yes.
This was due to occur. Now, what's happened is, economically, this was expected. What wasn't expected was the cataclysm that would cause it.
Yeah, sure.
At a macroeconomic level, something always shocks the system, right? And that causes then, all of the fund managers and all that kind of thing to say, sell, sell, sell.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. And so they had no idea what it would be, and they've never known what the event would be. But their prediction was that somewhere between October of 2019 and February of 2020, a downfall would occur. Their prediction is that it will be L-shaped, right? So it's got a steep downward drop, and then it flattens out. Their prediction is that it will last for 18 months. And by the way, they've got all of these predictions right for the last 20 years.
Really? Okay.
Yeah. And so their surmise is that will level out. It'll run for 18 months, and then it will uptick. And here's the really exciting thing for anybody that's watching this and hasn't heard me bang on about this already. One of the greatest booms in the history of humankind will kick in. And Tim's prediction was, and I'm just looking at my notes here, September 2021. In September 2021, we will begin to see the biggest uptick in productivity that we've ever experienced, and it will be a massive boom, and it will be on a global scale. So to Phil's point just a moment ago, and I might point this way because I never know when we're recording which side you end up on. But so to Phil's point just a moment ago, absolutely, this will not last. So yeah, it's good that some companies are hanging on to their talent rather than needing to retool again when they think it's coming good, because by then the starter's gun's already gone off and there are a bunch of people 100 meters ahead already, right?
Yeah, well, that's the thing. I'm not an economist, but as I said, I'm 65. I've lived through a number, obviously a few years and seen things happen, and history always has a habit of repeating itself. Yep. And since the Great Depression, it's tough. It gets back on track, and I think we've learned a lot more. We've learned a lot since the Great Depression.
Yep.
So bottom line is, yeah, I don't know exactly, but I agree with you. I think there's a lot of money in the system. There's going to be more money in the system than there ever was.
Absolutely. Yeah.
It's got to go somewhere.
Yeah, 100%.
Yeah.
At the same time, this is probably an opportunity, and there'll be a bunch of people in here watching this, listening to this right now, who won't like what I'm about to say next. But it's an opportunity for some organizations to get rid of the good old dead wood, right?
Well, yeah. It is, and I'm sure some of them are.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so, at the same time, again, for those of you that are watching and listening, if there was ever a time you were going to invest in yourself and really sharpen your saw, this would have to be that time. I read a report that was put together by Salesforce. It was produced in February of this year. It was summarizing the sales results out of North America, admittedly, so not Australia, but out of North America for 2019. And their numbers showed that 56% of sales reps in the United States failed to hit target. 56%. So, what that says is more than half, slightly more than half of the workforce, sales force, are ineffective. If you're anywhere near being in that bunch right now, look out, because chances are the CFO is writing your name on a whiteboard, right?
Yeah, well, look, it's true. And, unfortunately, we both know, because you're in sales recruiting, I'm in sales training and coaching. I've started businesses and run them, and it's really hard to get good salespeople.
Yep.
It's really hard to get motivated, effective salespeople. Simple. Yep. That's no surprise that only 56% or whatever it is, hit their target, because, it's no surprise. But the ones that are motivated and the ones that are prepared to learn, get out of their comfort zone, decide that they want to play the piano like Elton John or close to it, they kick butt. But there's not that many of them around.
No, there's not, right?
Yeah.
Absolutely. We were having that conversation just the other day in terms of some stuff that we're looking at doing and looking at who might be our ideal avatar. And we were very much coming to the conclusion that there aren't that many people around. This may be a little too difficult to answer at the moment, but I'll pose it anyway, because you're older, much older and wiser than me. So
I don't know whether that's a compliment or not, but I'll accept it.
If somebody was going to invest in some kind of professional development right now, as a sales professional, what should they be looking at? I don't know, that might differ from one person to the next, but
like
it's something that you believe is a fundamental, you must be a black belt at this right now. What do you reckon that would be?
It's a really good question. It is a good question. And look, having gone through the whole thing myself, so, I got fired from every job I had till I was 28, including that first, proper, I was recruited by, the big Honeywell, the American computer company, put in a class for a year, taught us how to sell mainframe computers, supposedly, and I got switched on to sales and, motivation and personal growth, personal development, Tommy Hopkins, Zig Ziglar, Jim Rohn, who was Tony Robbins' original mentor. Actually, I used to get a magazine for the United States called Success Magazine. Do you remember seeing that?
Yeah, absolutely.
I don't think they do it. And one of the editors was Og Mandino.
Yeah.
You remember? So I've got tons of Og Mandino books. He was like this, really personal growth sort of guy. I wrote a lot of books around it. And I remember always seeing, opening up, and in the top right-hand corner of each copy that I got, because I got it sent from the States, because I was quite motivated. Once I got fired, I really got fired up. Right. And so I had this magazine sent from the States, Success Magazine. And in the top right-hand corner, there was a photo of this really young guy with a daggy suit and tie and a sort of smart, short haircut, Anthony Robbins. And he was like 19 or 20.
Right.
And he was billing himself as a sales trainer. And so I always remember that. But so look, so that prelude was about that I've been fired. I know what it's like. To depends what people are selling, but there's only three things that really determine your ultimate success in sales or probably anything else. The first one is what you do, is like your activity.
Yeah.
And Tony Robbins talks about that. Everybody talks about that, but but it's got to be the right activity.
Yeah.
And it's not like Tony says, don't go, don't head east looking for a sunset. It's a great point. So doing the right activity. So if you're not doing the right activity, you got to try and figure out or get someone to help you figure out what it is, and then you got to do it. And a part of that that I've learned over the years is accountability. The role of a manager, a good manager, part of the role is accountability, and not everybody gets that. So that's activity. The second thing is your mindset, is what are some of your core beliefs around what you do about yourself primarily, about, what you're selling, what value you bring to the marketplace, because mindset is a really important thing. And I actually wrote a thing I put in LinkedIn yesterday, James. I don't know if you saw it or not, but it was around, I'm writing this thing about the top characteristics of the world's top performers. And one of them is that they have a high level of self-worth and belief.
Yep.
Like they're not easily deterred because they've got a strong set of beliefs and values.
Yes.
So that's the second thing, mindset. And you can work on that. There are some things, but it takes time. And the third thing, so we've got, we've got activities, we've got mindset, and the third thing is skill or technique. So, and that is, learning. You can learn how to make an effective prospecting call to someone you've never spoken to. That's not, oh, hi, James, this is Phil Lee. How are you today? Right? You can actually learn. I can teach people, for instance, and there are other people who do it well as well, how to make, given that they've got the right mindset and they've got enough motivation, how to make a prospecting call that at least 60% of the time will allow you to get into a conversation with the person that's never heard from you and wasn't expecting your call, because you make it about them, not about you. And that's just an example. And so it's a combination of those three things. It's like a stool. Unless all those three legs, activity, mindset, skill, and technique, are solid, the stool, well, if they're solid, the stool will be solid. If one or more of them are a little wobbly, the stool will be wobbly. If they're all wobbly, don't sit on it. Right? So, look, and it takes time. I can take. So the first thing I would say, if you don't want to if you don't have a manager who's helping you, or you don't have a mentor that will help you, or you don't want to get a coach or a trainer, then just start doing more activity. And don't get precious about it. Just start doing, the simplest thing you can do is do more of the right activity.
Yep, absolutely right. I love it.
Does that make sense?
Yeah, that's great. And there's an old formula that I, back in my sales training days, that we would teach as many as would listen. And I was actually talking to my former business partner only this morning and asked him, how many people do you reckon we actually got in front of over our time? And he did the maths, and we reckon it's somewhere around 32,000 people.
Wow.
So if you're in that 32,000, I apologize. But the formula that we used to teach was QDQ. And I don't know if you're familiar with that one or not, but quantity. How many calls or in-mails, what's the quantity that you need to do to get the return? Direction. Who the hell are you talking to? Is it the right person to be talking to?
Exactly.
And then quality. What is the quality of the conversation that you're having? And in particular, that's about, the quality of your conversation is directly correlated to the quality of your questions. Yeah.
I love it. No, seriously. So the first one, you shouldn't need help with is quantity.
Yeah.
Right. If you're serious about, why do people get in sales? A number of reasons, but one of the very top ones should be you want to make money. Sales is a business game.
Yep.
And you make money in sales because you can eat what you kill, or a percentage. You can earn a percentage of what you personally of what you bring in. So the second, quantity, definitely.
No brainer.
You know, the old insurance adage when I started was, if you knock on 10 doors, you'll sell one insurance policy. And you will. You don't have to be brilliant. You just got to keep doing it. The problem is most people knock on 12 doors, don't get one sale, so they quit.
Yeah.
Right. But if they would have kept going over 100 calls, they would have made 10 sales.
Yep.
Thereabouts.
Yep.
The second ones are probably a little bit more complex. So your QDQ, the D, what was the D?
Direction. Who are you talking to? Are you talking to the right people?
Okay, so that sounds easy, but then that goes back, are you comfortable talking to the right people?
Yeah.
And so it sounds, look, what are you doing talking to these people? Call the managing director or call the general manager. But if your mindset goes back to what I was talking about earlier, if you're not comfortable, if you've got some head trash, if you don't feel great about yourself, if your mum told you that you'll never amount to anything and why would anybody want to talk to you, this stuff comes back when you've been told to go off and only speak to decision-making type people. So that might be an area you might want to look at. So QDQ, and the last one was, what was the Q?
Quality of the conversation.
Quality of the conversation, which comes back typically to what sales process or methodology are you using? Yeah. Do you freaking have one?
Yeah, you got an F out, even though
I got an F out. Most people really don't. And, you know, depending on how many times we do this, James, you'll probably get sick of me hearing say this if we do more of these things. Most people's process or strategy is a hope strategy.
Yep.
So, you know, there's a lot in that. Quality is, do you use a process? Do you know what questions to ask and when to ask them?
Yeah.
All that sort of stuff. So.
Beautiful. All right. So at this point in time, I'm about to call it a wrap, but I'm going to end with an observation. And so one of my favorites from my early days in sales was Brian Tracy.
Brian Tracy very kindly gave me an endorsement on the bottom of my book. What a gentleman, eh?
So keep the book there, because here's the deal, folks, right? One of the things that I learned from Brian Tracy was, if you want to lead, you got to read. Now, bear in mind that back in the day, you know, we had these things called books, not podcasts and webinars and, you know, all the online kind of stuff. So, you know, us two are just polishing the silver right now. But if you want to lead, you got to read or watch or learn, you know, observe. You've got to be bringing that stuff in. And what I really want to recommend right now is that as many of you as can possibly do, start ingesting more and more and more. Take it upon yourself. Don't wait for the owner of your business or your sales manager to send you on some course, right? If you want to lead, you got to read. And a good book to read right now would be,
well, you know,
you weren't here to promote it, but hey, you've written it.
I wasn't intending to do that, but you're right, James. A lot of salespeople do not invest in themselves.
Yeah.
And, you know, like my book, for instance, there's stuff you've got to do because just reading it. Look, I got a sore back, so I haven't played golf for a couple of years, but I played for over 20 years.
Mm-hmm.
I must have bought 30 or 40 books, including about 8 from Tiger Woods, you know, the most magnificent books.
Yeah.
Did it improve my golf game?
Right.
The answer is no. I loved reading them. I went, you know, I would try, but I would go out and try what I thought was Tiger was doing. I wouldn't get anywhere near it. So I would have a coach. And when I, you know, got myself to a reasonable level, because I worked with a coach. But to your point, yes, anything you do, if you're sincere and you're motivated, my book, you know, is a good place to start it off. Just reiterate some of the things that I've said.
Mm-hmm.
If anybody's interested in it, I wasn't going to do this, but, you know, because times are tough, if you want this book, you can have it for $10 plus whatever delivery is. I think anywhere in Australia, it's about $10. So it'll cost you $20. I wasn't planning on doing this, but if that helps, that helps. You know, so.
And to be able to take Phil up on his offer, you can see in the bottom of the screen there his email address. So it's info@phillee.com.au. Alternately, you can hit him up on LinkedIn because he's into social selling, just like you are. So, mate, this has been a hoot. I've really enjoyed this. Thank you.
Me too, James. Look, you're a very clever guy.
Some say, not many.
Well, I just said it. And that analogy about the Coca-Cola sign, you know, I love that. And that QDQ, yep. I love that as well.
Cool. Mate, just quote me for the next 5 times you use it. Number 6, it's yours.
like that too. I'm going to steal that one.
See you around, folks.
Yeah.
We're going to do more of these, I promise. I hope you've enjoyed it. We've
Have
enjoyed it.
fun selling, guys.
Yeah, start selling, please.